Well, hello everybody, and thank you for coming. I think it's kind of an obscure topic, so it's gratifying to have anybody here. I had no idea how many people would come, and maybe a few more will drift in as we go along. But in any case, as most or all of you know, our current season is called Art Music, and those two words are connected by two colons, which makes a little square. And we fussed around with that a lot. Art plus music was one of the ideas, but I wanted something a little bit more artistic, I guess. Um, the connection of the different arts has always been of interest to me for a very long time, probably because I'm a choral person, and for choral people, um, you're stuck with it because you're always doing poetry or prose or literature, or that's an art, and the combination of that and music is what we do. So so having words and meaning and stories and um, all of those things available when we are putting our music together is a real boon in trying to figure out what it's all about. I always think that that non-vocal music is more difficult in a way because you don't have those clues that we share with the composers, even if they were 300 years ago. They were confronting the same texts that we now confront in trying to interpret the music that they wrote. Now, of course, our ethos, our background, our education, everything about us is considerably different from people centuries ago, but we also share a lot, as we know. Um, and so I have felt for a long time, and many of you know from coming to concerts, that we emphasize visual art in our programs, in our season brochures, etc. Because I always feel like, they say that some people are visual, some people are oral, some people, like basically learn and understand and comprehend in different kinds of ways. So I figure the more we can expand that the possibilities for connection, the better. And so that's been part of what we do for quite a long time. As most of you know, I'm a very wordy person, um, but I think there's some things that are very hard to express in words, and so I basically thought we should challenge ourselves and do a whole season where each production is attempting to live at the nexus between music and the visual arts. This particular presentation isn't so much about the visual arts, or about generally the connection between music and the visual arts. It's more specific about actual music which appears in paintings and other kinds of art, um, of visual art. It's a really interesting topic, and there are some good. I'll pass along to you a couple of websites on that were helpful in kind of getting me started on this topic. But a lot of what I've been doing is just basically going through collections of art, and in particular some books that focus on this nexus idea. And what's really of interest to me is when we can know what what is being performed in a given work of art. And you'll find as we go along that there are more of those than you might think. I'm sure I haven't discovered them all by any means, but uh, there are quite a few that we'll take a look at where the actual iteration or appearance of the score in the painting is detailed enough so that we know what piece of music it is. Now, of course, it won't have all the pages. It'll just have the opening page or the title page or something like that. Um, so when we find those, or even hints of those, or possibilities of those, that's sort of the gold, as far as I'm concerned, for this show. So what I'm going to do right now is to try to resurrect my Zoom skills and do some. Well, I am sharing already. I'm already. Diana, I don't have to do anything else, do I? Supposedly. Okay, hopefully. Can I keep my fingers crossed? So we're going to kind of launch in to one of five main areas that I'm covering, and they're based around some specific books. So here's an image for you. Can you all see that? Nod if you can. Okay, good. Thank you. This is a book that I bought when we were in Siena back in the late '90s with the choir. These miniatures, choir book miniatures. The books are actually big, but the miniatures refer to the historiated initials. So the actual books are pretty good sized. And this is late 13th century. You can tell from this very cover what a beautiful artwork each of these pages is. So this is the first thing that I want to explore here. Is this like an early version of this? I'm sure. Well, there certainly are many depictions of people making music going all the way back to the beginning of art, the beginning of humans. But this idea of having music scores and music together. I think this was one of the illuminated manuscripts is one of the primary focuses for that, because that was a thing. You put music down in a choir book, and it might have some decoration, or it might not only have a little, but the more lavish iterations are more like this, absolutely beautiful, tiny, tiny paintings. So we're going to explore a bit of that. I have picked out 4 of the miniatures. And what's cool about this book is that you can see on the page, not only is the title and the occasion, in this case the visitation, when Mary goes to the hills and visits her cousin Elizabeth, who's also going to have a baby, that being John the Baptist. So we know what it is. We know who the artist was, Liberale da Verona, and we also know the name of the chant that was part of that. This is this historiated initial here doesn't really quite look like it, but it's a big G. And down below it on the right, just following off to the right, are the first A, U of the word Gaudeamus. Now that helps me because I immediately know what chant it is. It's not always easy to tell from the notation. Plus, we don't have the whole choir. I don't have the whole choir book. I only have these sections of pages that are in the book. So Gaudeamus Omnes is a chant that's still being done and still being recorded. And here is how it sounds. So to my way of thinking, it's pretty cool. I mean, it would be nice if we had the whole page and we could follow it, but it is the same music with obviously some variations, and there's all these regional variations of the chants. But and for many of you, it might be interesting to see this chant notation, this square note notation with these neumes, the notes that are grafted together, either one above the other or one angularly down or up from the other. That's the way the music was done, with no particular indication for rhythm. It was done very freely. So that's one of the ones I have to share with you. And let me just kind of continue on here. Here is an adoration of the Magi on a different artist here, Ecce Advenit Dominus. So again, here it's very hard to see right here, but here is the rest of the word, Ecce Advenit, right down here at the bottom. And of course, what we have here is the actual adoration of the Magi. The 3 kings have just arrived. These are young-looking kings, if you ask me, but this one's older. and here's the child Jesus. Here's how that music sounds. I just noticed this. Is this his hat that he's taken off as he's adoring the child? It looks like a wintry hat to me. Anyway, that's a side issue. Here's another one. This is one of my favorite scenes from the whole Christmas cycle. If you come to the Bach Choir's concert in December, we have a section that addresses this. It's not usually the Christmas stories don't usually go all the way back to the Annunciation. They tend to start with Advent or with the birth itself, or the angels appearing to the shepherds, etc. And they only go so far, maybe to Epiphany. But for our particular show, we've expanded in both directions, and so we get to have the whole entire cycle. So the child, Mary has to go to the temple 40 days after she gives birth for her, quote, purification. And when she arrives there, there's this guy, this old man called Simeon, who's been waiting in the temple. God had told him that he wouldn't be able to die, and he's ready to die until he meets his Savior. And without any angels appearing and shouting to him, he simply seems to know that this is the child. And he takes the child and holds him up in his hands, and he sings what we call the Nunc Dimittis. Lord, let thy servant depart in peace according to thy will, for mine eyes have seen my Savior, as thou hast promised. So here he is holding the child, and here's Mary, the much older Joseph, the priest, etc. So the chant for this is called Suscepimis Deus. You might have noticed that we could actually read these notes. Here, I'll be like the bouncing ball and do that again and see if you can kind of follow it a bit. It's not always precise because, as I mentioned, the chant changes over the years. I think that's pretty cool. We're reaching back to the 13th century and we're actually reading stuff off of that. And we have these beautiful, um, not only the historiated initials, but look at how incredible the surroundings are. And like, which guy is this? And it's probably one of the evangelists. And it's like, what's happening here? There's so much going on. It just delights me. And then to be able to there's music attached to that. That's pretty cool. I've got one more for you. This is oh, sorry, it didn't actually open. Hello. Ah, there we go. This is the Assumption of Mary. And the chant for this one is the same as the Visitation. So I won't play that, but I wanted you to see the image, which let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. It's really quite amazing. Look at these angels surrounding her, people singing from a long scroll, people playing instruments. All seem to be female angels. Here's a wind instrument here, probably a cornetto. And just so much. Look at these. What are these anyway? Are these eels or what? What's happening here? It's crazy. And then the certain fancy letters that stand out. So that's one way of combining music and art. Now we're going to launch into the treasury of Petrus Alamire. Now that's going to sound familiar to a few of you because that's the title of our second concert set of the season coming right up next weekend. And the idea there actually became a little bit more complex as we went along, but the focus is upon this incredible collection of manuscripts. This is the page from our, I don't know if I can make this actually work out, but you're going to see this page in a minute. But during the exact same years when music printing was getting going in the early years of the 16th century in Venice, during those exact same years, Petrus Alamire ran a manuscript workshop. He was an illuminator himself, and he developed a whole shop of people who were producing incredibly beautiful scores as presentation pieces. I mean, the kind of people who could afford it were either rich business people or royalty, because there was an immense amount of time, energy, love, passion that went into each one of these. Here's the cover of the book from which I stole the name, The Treasury of Petrus Alamire. And the cover of the book gives you some idea. Here is a mass by Pierre de la Rue, and here is a historiated initial for the letter K, which stands for Kyrie. And if you look at the music that starts on the top line, you think, oh, that starts with a whole note. No, it starts in triple time. That is the meter signature for triple time. A whole note would be a diamond-shaped note, as in the notes that occur immediately after that. So those are the actual notes. This is all done by hand. It would have the music copying would probably have been done by someone different from the person who did the historiated initial. So I think the music would have been done first, leaving the space, and then this historiated initial is added on. So we're going to explore some of these, and these are great because they are works of art in and of themselves and include multiple of these miniatures, which are little tiny works of art. And we know what music is associated with them because the music's right there, as are the words. So here's launching into that. I'm going to give you two examples. They're both from, actually we have one third little lagniappe at the end. They're both masses by Josquin Dupré, one of everyone's favorite Renaissance composers. So here is the Cantus Tenor page from Josquin's Missa Ave Maris Stella. Now here's the Queen of Heaven, again being serenaded by some musicians, surrounded by these carved angels holding the child. And what's funny about this is that the text, the lyrics, again, you have a clef here, that's a G clef, which kind of, you can see how it wraps around the G line. It doesn't have the top part of it, although you can see it slightly when you get to you see the little top curl of the G clef if you look closely for it. And then we have the circle, which means it's in triple time. And these books were put together with, you read them, they wouldn't have been photocopied, okay? You had to try to figure out how to get all the singers to read off of one score, because as I said, they were expensive. And so we'd have two facing pages. Here's the other facing page, which contains the alto and the bass parts. Wait, did I get that wrong? Or did I open that twice? I think I opened that twice. Sorry. Hold on 1 second. There we go. See if that works. Yeah, that's the facing page. So it would appear over here. I can't quite make this work. But here we have the bass part. You see it has a big giant B and it says assus, bassus. Okay, and this is the countertenor, etc. And these are probably some of the donors that made this possible, or the people who bought the score. And now the music starts to look a little more recognizable. It has rhythmic elements to it, though it's a little bit different still. It still has these neumes that connect. This is two notes, which would be the top note and the bottom note. It still has some artifacts from the older kind of notation. And here's what the Ave Mater sounds like. Let me see if I can get this arrayed a little more sensibly. And I just messed everything up. Okay, well, we'll stick on that for the moment. Here's what the music sounds like. This is the opening Kyrie. Bass just came in after all those rests. Some of the tiny detail is incredible. Like, look at this right here. This little squiggle is called a custos. And you see it right here. You see them here, here, and here. What they do is they give you a heads up as to what the first note on the next line is going to be. So this is the custos that indicates that your next note is going to be on the second line down. This one, the copyist probably ran over slightly. And so the illuminator then made this little cutout so that the custos could still be seen. It's just there's so many beautiful little details in these things. It kills you. Now I'm going to go on to a more famous piece. This one is called, also by Josquin, called the Missa Panjalingua. See if I can set them up in facing. Yeah, there we go. We'll put one here, and we'll put one here, like that. I hope you can see that. So this is the famous Missa Panjalingua by the Venerable. No, wait, no, Missa de Venerabilis. I don't know, something's missing right there. Sacramento. Okay, so it's for the Venerable Sacrament, and it's based upon a hymn for Corpus Christi called the Panjalingua. Panjalingua gloriosum corporis mysterium, and you can see it in several voices. The sopranos start bum 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 bum, and the tenor goes dum dum bum bum. Everybody starts with that long note, go up a note, go back down a note. Everybody starts that way. And here we have this more, how would you put it, sort of maybe frivolous, but incredibly elegant historiated K right here with these little faces in it and flowers and a monstrance of some sort. And this guy's looking the other way, and what the heck is going on here with this little sketchy? It's hard to say, isn't it? So there's a lot going on there visually, and I'm going to put the music on, even though some of you know this piece. It's one of the greats. Hold on. So if you want to follow the tenor part. So that's right down here. Here's the meter signature. It's in triple time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, and 2, and 3, like that. And you could follow it all the way through this opening Kyrie. Why not? rests. That's the bass coming in, now tenor. A piece changed my life, utterly changed my life in, important, significant ways. And it just makes me so happy to see it looking like this. We should read off this stuff, you guys. Forget this modern music, it's so boring. Okay, then as I mentioned, I have one other little snippet from Alamir's workshop. This is, I just love the miniature on this one. It is by Jakob Olbrecht, and it's called Misa sine spina. It's Misa, the rose without a thorn, sine spina rosam. Here's the cantus tenor part. And to me, this is just, I just love this. See if I can make it a little bigger. So with rose without thorns, and here she is surrounded with roses and other petaled flowers just everywhere. The Kyrie, and look at how beautiful, like even the notes are just so fascinating and beautiful. And here's how a little bit of how that sounds. So the soprano should be coming in without a rest, because there's that circle that means it's in triple time, and then the square note is, you should be able to hear the soprano right from the beginning. Let's see if I'm right. There she is, or he. That's a rest. There he goes. Staggeringly beautiful. It's unusual for this period for a piece to start homophonically like that. Everyone singing in the same rhythm at the same time in chords. It's very unusual. It's kind of a special effect and just note one more little thing before we go on. The titles of the pieces usually have these titles because they're based upon a chant or a pre-existing piece of music at any rate with that text. So this was based upon a chant called Sicut Spina Rosam. But what's funny about it is that here those words come in the middle of a mass. The actual words of this song are not here in the tenor part. It's doing the long notes of the chant itself, but it's underlaid with the chant's words. That's kind of strange. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to substitute words. It did happen sometimes, but it's unusual. So it's worth noticing, and also worth noticing that those words are written in red. So they're bringing out the idea that it's the tenor, as is so often the case in this music, who's carrying the pre-existing melody, which forms the basis for this entire mass. Our next little focus is on a book, and all the information and images that are in this book. Hold on, let me see if I can get this to come up. Bink. I did. Which was written by a friend of mine, or at least a grad school colleague of mine. We were friends in grad school, but I haven't seen him since grad school, so that's like 40 years now. And he was a wonderful guy in grad school, and he's still a wonderful guy. I think Amanda will agree that this book is it's a very readable book of musicology, which is somewhat unusual. I mean, usually I feel like a kind of a guerrilla warrior, you know, where I'm trying to go into the thicket and pull out the gold, because a lot of times, and you know, these people who treat music in this systematic way have to be like this. It's not at all a criticism, and I'm very grateful for the work that they do, but not all of them can make the prose really sing, and John can. It's it's a fun book to look through, and there's a huge amount of beautiful color plates in the middle, and lots of music being referred to. Now, Saint Cecilia is the patron saint of music, as most of you all know, and as you can see, the emergence of a musical icon is his theme, but he really does a quite wonderful roundup of Saint Cecilia, the history of the actual history of Saint Cecilia, the legends that developed in the Middle Ages, and the carving out of an important role for her, which came relatively late, 1,000 years after her death or so. So there's many wonderful things about this book. But here are drawing from the iconography that John includes in the book. I chose some that I thought were particularly useful for this theme. Here's a chant. Excuse me. There we go. Nope, it's not coming up. Hello. Let's go back. Let's get rid of a few things. Probably overtaxing. There we go. That can go away too. There it is. All right. This can go away too. All right. Now, here is a chant, Cantantibus Organis, and this historiated initial is hard to see in this case, but in this detail, not so hard to see. I think this is the same one, although it's hard for me to see the other one, even in real life. This is the Cecilia's wedding feast, and the Cantantibus chant we're going to return to in polyphony. It sounds like this. Oops, here we go. So that's somewhat similar to the situation that we had in the Siena choir books. But we go straight on from that to some other interesting concatenations. Here's a painting by a guy named Michel Cox. I don't know how you say it, Coxy. Saint Cecilia at the Virginal, accompanying angels in a performance of Clemens non Papas Cecilia Virgo Gloriosa, another of the Cecilian texts. So this is, here's Saint Cecilia. Here's somebody, who knows, he might have a magazine kind of put in there the way trombone players used to do back in the day. And here's an angel, and here's somebody reading from a part book. And these part books are so detailed that it's possible, when you look at them up close, to actually tell what the music is. So what John did was he kind of dug down into that. And this is from that same painting that we were just looking at. And here is the music for Cecilia Virgo Gloriosa by Clemens non Papa, which means Clemens, not the Pope, or not a potato, depending upon which language you're speaking about. And we have this music. This music exists. It's a 4-part motet. Here's what it sounds like. Oh, I have to tell you about this. This a couple of these tracks that I'm playing right now are from a project where where this ensemble was trying to bring out or give us good performances of these pieces that we can also see in painting. So I was very grateful. There's a couple of them here. I wish I could show you the video as well, because they're in not just sound files, but they're video files. Anyway, here's the opening of Cecilia Virgo. You could follow it there, can you? I hope everyone could see it there, right? Here in the printed music. This is not from the painting, obviously. This is probably this is a copy that someone made from the print. You can tell that this is printed music because of the way the type is all broken up into little chunks. By this time, when in music printing, they are the pieces come like this. This whole note here is actually 5 little chunks of staff lines. And if you wanted a note that was, this note is a G, if you wanted a D, you'd just turn that upside down and your whole note would be on D instead of on G. So anyway, there's a lot of interesting things here, but this is the cantus part. You can tell because it says superius, which means the same thing, top part. And this is a treble clef. This is a small, modest, historiated. We would say it was really cool, but we've just been looking at those wild color ones. This is more or less equivalent to what we call cut time. And here's the soprano part. Let me just start it again. You can follow along with that if you'd like. Now, I wiped out the detail because I thought it would be nice to look at this and listen to the music. That's one of the things that's so cool about this is that this, we know that this painting was made to celebrate this and to express somehow this very exact music that we are now listening to. And we don't get to do that often, right? It's pretty cool. So yeah, there's that. And let me just go down another page. There's another one here. And I'll show you first the image. These are called composer, I think they're called composer motets or musician motets. So this is a work of art which is focused around, where everybody participating is focused around this part book here. And we do have a close-up of that part book as well. And look at how clear that is. I mean, that is unbelievably clear. Here's the music around that. Same ensemble. me, it's amazing that all the detail that's inherent right here. A couple things that might be of interest. This slash here means um, fit in the same words. It's kind of like ditto marks. Over here we have a bunch of iterations of this little dash that occurs over a letter or a word. That means that something's been left out. This is fiat cor meum. And same thing with here, confundar, and immaculatum should have two M's. So there's a little line over there drawing the singer's attention to those facts. So these are just parts of this particular orthography. Even here, you know, he couldn't resist adding some little flourishes. It's pretty workmanlike, but there's still these kind of little cool little flourishes that he added there. So again, you could listen to that and listen to this. This person doesn't look that happy, I must say, but maybe they're singing out of tune. You never know. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next chapter of this Bach talk. And let me just get rid of a few things here. There we go. Back to. And we're going into a book. There actually were, when I started researching this, I found three books called Music in Art. One of them wasn't very productive, but two of them were. And here's the book cover. And we're going to take a look at this very same Lautenist, because her music is also music that's recognizable. So this is by a guy called Tom Phillips, who's also an artist, and I have an image from him, very different kind of image, at the end of our excerpts from his book. So here's one that I just kind of liked. One of the things that I found was that music printed, like sheet music, whether manuscript or printed or whatever, is iconic for musicians. It's kind of obvious that it would be, but it's amazing when you start looking how many and in all styles too, including jazz and all the other styles that, you know, people painted later, like the 20th century, etc. But it's there, and very frequently you could see that it's music, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. We don't have clefs here, we don't have key signature, we don't have a meter signature. It's clearly there. Matisse clearly put it there to suggest music, and probably guitar music because of who's playing, of the guitar player. But so a lot of times it's kind of interesting just to see, you know, maybe like those, there's not even the right number of lines per step, and yet we immediately recognize it as music, right? Everybody does, even if you aren't a musician. Here's one that I just found sort of touching. This person this is a self-portrait of Angelica Kaufmann at age 13. And the text here is a continuation of what was happening, the text from the rest of the page that I cropped out. But she apparently was a wildly enthusiastic artist and also a musician. And she was apparently about to give up music. So the guy who writes the book has a theory that this kind of wistful but forward-looking look on her face is because she's found her passion and she's going towards that. And this, I mean, she's obviously a very talented artist, especially at age 13, when I was drawing stick figures, which I still do. So anyway, that's just kind of a slight, well, I mean, we could try to read that music. It's almost readable. It seems to be an Italian text as far as I can see. I think I see placidi, which is an Italian word, and but I don't think it could quite pull off performing it. But I thought I'd put it in because I like her face. I admire her. Now, this is one that many of you probably recognize. This is The Ambassadors by Hans Holbein, one of the absolute great artists of the early 16th century. Um, and this is a genre. This being painted in your fanciest clothes with all kinds of artifacts and interesting things behind you. And you can see this globe with the little handle, this fixed globe up here. This is some sort, I don't know what this is. It looks got little dials to it. Something astronomical, I'm just guessing, plus these plush drapes, incredible rendering of the furs, etc. Now, before I get to the music part, though, take a look at this. That's a skull. And you can sort of see it's a skull on its side. And if you kind of get down to the right level, you can see it. And it's supposed to be a symbol of vanity and the shortness of life and such. But why it's presented like that, I mean, to me, it looks like a flying saucer that just flew into this wonderful room. So if you haven't seen this before and you haven't checked it out, do it right away, as soon as I'm done talking, because the ambassadors, I mean, that's just an incredible painting. And that's the skull thing is also very cool. Here's a lute, and here's a book of music. And that book of music is recognizable, maybe not in this particular iteration, but this is a big K right here, and it stands for Komm Heiliger Geist, and it's recognizably from, again, not, I can't read it right here, but there's also a little bit of music over in this smaller book. But in a really good rendering of the piece you can. And so we not only know that it is the Martin Luther chorale Komm Heiliger Geist, but we know that it's in Johann Walter's arrangement from 1527. So that's pretty cool. And here's how that sounds. This is, most of you, many of you know that I'm a big fan of these chorales. And this chorale, the tune and the words are it's one of my very favorites. And this is probably my very favorite setting. Our consort did this in our Bachapella show last March. I could just play that over and over again for the whole rest of our talk. It is so dancey. It's so independent. Everyone's got their own ideas of where to go, but it all fits together. It's like a continually evolving texture. It's just incredible. Now, guess who we got next? I'm pretty sure you recognize this guy. And if you don't recognize him, you'll recognize what's on his music rack there. It is Messiah. It's George Frederick Handel with the score of Messiah. Now, you all know what that sounds like, but I found this really, really good recording of the Amen, so we have to play that. It's a live recording by a group called Voces 8 plus others, and with a full orchestra. It's not what they usually do, but they sure do it well. Next up is the loudness that we saw on the cover of the same book. Um, Here she is, and she's got some music that's recognizable. At least we know that it's by Jakob Arkadelt. And so I chose Arkadelt's most famous piece, Il Bianco e Dolce Cigno, as performed by the King's Singers. So we'll look at her while we listen.
Il bianco e dolce cigno cantando more, ed io piangendo giungo al fin del viver mio, ed io piangendo giungo al fin del viver mio. Strane e diversa sorte, che muore sconsolato.
Sorry to cut that one off. That's a really beautiful one too. I love to. I've been really enjoying as I've been working on this, just listening to these pieces and looking at the images at the same time. And I'm going to try to find a way to package this to send to you all. So if you're interested in that, let Diana know. Some parts of it are easy, because like I have all the images on my hard disk and I could package those up, no problem. But I have to figure out how to get the links out there, which are all in a Word document. So maybe we could do this. It'd be fun. Okay, the next one is already locally famous because it's on the cover of our season brochure. And this is, and also it's interesting because the flight into Egypt is part of our early music Christmas next month. And exploring that, I've never explored music appropriate to that, nor for the Massacre of the Innocents, nor for the Return from Egypt. Those three incidents in the extended Christmas story, I had never, approached from a musical point of view. So it's interesting here now. Joseph, this is an angel giving them some comfort and music as they are headed down to Egypt. And this is the child Jesus. This is Mary, and this is the old Joseph who's holding this book, which is again recognizable. It's a no longer famous composer called Noel Bauderwein, and it is a setting of a Song of Songs text. As many of you know, the Song of Songs passages are often used in praise of Mary. Quam pulchra es, how beautiful are you? And it's quite a beautiful motet as well. I love a good group too. It's called the Corale San Filippo. Um, this one is just a little lagniappe. This is by Tom. This is a painting by Tom Phillips, the collector who assembled all of these things into this book, Music and Art. But this is one of his own images. It's called Lost Notes from Andernich. Now, Andernich sort of rang a bell, and it probably does for a lot of you, but I couldn't track it down in my mind, so I chickened out and used Google. and it was in Endenich, in the psychiatric hospital in Endenich, where Robert Schumann died. And these are I mean, the image that I get from Tom Phillips is these are the notes he left behind. Last notes from Anthony that they didn't quite get to fit onto the staff in a clear way. We do have a deathbed chorale by Robert Schumann, which is truly an amazing thing. We did it a few years ago. Um, Now we're going to go on to another book called, surprise, Music and Art. And I'm calling it Music and Art 2 because we already had Tom Phillips. This was put together by Alberto Ossoni and translated into English. And it's a fantastic book. I will give you a slight warning, which is that it's the kind of book that has little, the image doesn't fill the whole page, and there's commentary with little lines that point to what's being commented upon. So I did a lot of cropping, but you're still going to see some tiny little lines that aren't like alien lines or anything. They're just artifacts of the way this was presented. Here's one that I like. I don't have any music for it in particular, but I enjoy this one very much. It's a woodcut of musicians. Let's get some of this off of here. Here it is, but I need to clear house here. Let's see, I need to come through. All right, you get away. Get behind me, Handel. Get behind me, Hans Holbein. All right, now let's go back and do that woodcut again. So there's a lot going on here, but it's clearly all musical. Music types, poems, and then this woman is clearly teaching the scales. And we have instrumentalists of all types. Don't ask me why this stuff is here, etc. But to me, there's just something beautiful and balanced about that. Otherwise, somewhat irrelevant. And this one is not exactly relevant to the music, although we have a similar one that's coming later, the actual music, like readable music in art. But to me, this is a number of you have probably been to the Metropolitan Museum and visited the Studiolo, where all of this intarsia, inlaid wood, forms a whole little room. And this is not 3D. This is all flat on, it's all flush with the wall surface. They look like they're lying on a shelf, but they're not. And it's, to me, it's amazing, and it makes me want to sing. So that's the connection to music. And there's one coming up later that does actually have a representation of some music. I'll show you in a sec. Here's something by Jan Bruegel called The Allegory of Hearing, and this is a detail from that painting. And there is plenty of music here, not to say an immense amount of musical instruments, and a heck of a lot going on back here, heck of a lot going on right here, and under the lid of the harpsichord, and way back here as well. And there's a whole part of this on this side that's left out as well. So there's an immense amount going on in here. We know, though, that they're playing, let's see if I can, music by Peter Phillips, English organist, etc. And it's madrigals to 6 voices, a sei voci. Well, I happen to have a favorite one of Peter Phillips's. Well, no, we should get that back because that's too good not to have. It's called Ut Re Mi Fa Sol La, and this the only really good performance that I can come across is mainly instrumental, but so that's what I'm playing. But the piece starts with everybody in 6 parts, contrapuntally going up those 6 notes of the gamut, and then at the end, finally they go back down, and then in between there's a love story. So if you hear a bunch of stepwise ascending motion, that's it. Those six notes are called the hexachord. And some of you old-time Bach choir people might remember back in around 2014 or so, we did a Magnificat by Michael Pretorius called Magnificat ut re mi fa sol la. And uh, there were, I don't know how many iterations of the hexachord, that six note scale in ascending and descending form, and sometimes at the same time. But it was one of the most exciting things I've ever done. The scale is cool, no question about it. Okay, now here's one that I just wanted to put in. This one reminded me of the detail from the ambassadors, and it has some music that I can it's pretty readable. You could see this is an instrumental piece. It's an allemande, probably for um, for this instrument, which is almost undoubtedly a viola da gamba. Um, and then again, these different artifacts, and I look at the head of the instrument right here, the hourglass, the skull's up. I love this. The skull's upended position and the accentuated cranial sutures underscore the fragility of human life. So when you have a headache, you probably look a little bit like this. You just stick your head down in the music and just cry. Choir. Okay, so the geese choir. We just have to look at the geese choir. If you don't know about this, there's a book called the Geese Book, right here, the Geese Book from Nuremberg. And what you have here is I don't know what this animal is exactly, but the fox is right behind, and the geese are supposed to be singing these neumes here, which are almost recognizable. You couldn't sing off of them, but they're almost recognizable as square note notation, so maybe chant notation, some kind of, and they're eagerly, as geese tend to be, singing while these guys plot their downfall. And the whole book has many of these little, not the geese and the other animals, but these little miniatures kind of woven in, which is always fun to look at. Here's a quickie. Luca della Robbia, carvings of Luca della Robbia, angels or young singers. I can't tell if they're angels. They probably are. But all singing from a long scroll, which I really like that. And that you could carve that in stone. I don't know how that works. Seems impossible to me. Um, and then there's one more intarsia that I mentioned, which I really want to take a look at. Let me see if I can find it. There it goes. It did come up. This is the one that I mentioned. Again, an absolutely flat surface, but with the trompe l'oeil or loire, or however you say that word, effect, creating the idea of open drawers of a lute that hasn't been that has broken strings, and a piece of actually almost playable music right here. To me, that's incredible. Let's see. Do they say? Um, No, I don't think. Well, no, here, yeah, there is. It says we find a two-part composition whose melody is that of verbum caro factum est. And that's funny because we have that text also in our early music Christmas. So that's pretty amazing. I would like to go see that someday. And now we're just getting near the end. I loved this story here. This is Carl Friedrich Abel, and he was nuts about the viola da gamba. He loved the instrument. I'm going to make it bigger for you. And I love this. He was buried with his instrument. I don't know why, I just really like that. So I never had heard any, oh, here it is. Yeah, he was buried with his viola da gamba as stipulated by his will. So I looked up some of his music. Here is a sonata by him. And now we have another one. It's called Still Life with a Violin. Cannot open the file. There we go. Oh, doesn't want to open. I don't know what's happening. Let's see. Let's get calm down, Bob. It's all good. Here we go. Let's try it again. Yeah, I did something wrong with that one, so I can't open that one. Let me just see if I can go to my folder, though. Might be able to do that. Just 1 second. BachTalk. There we go. Let's see if this will work. Oh, yeah. Wow, it's crazy, isn't it? It's so in your face. Anyway, this music is recognizable, again, not quite to us, but uh, but with good, very high quality enlargements. It's recognizable as being Cipriano de Rore's Ancor che col partire, probably his most famous piece. And I'll leave that up there while I play that back, a little bit of it. Earlier on, I was able, I'm going to see if I can show it to you. I was able to follow along with the part from here. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. You can't really see the exact notes, but you can see the shape here, and it says canto, so it's the top sounding voice. See if I got that right. Without invitation. Yeah, that is it. To me, it's amazing that a painter would take the care to get that right. To actually, most of the iterations of this idea of a music score in a painting are not that accurate, but so that makes the ones that really are accurate stand out. Here's one of my favorite music images, period. One of Picasso's iterations of the three musicians. I love this for a lot of reasons, but especially because of the dog. The dog is strangely shaped. His head's over here, his feet are here, one of his legs is here, and his tail is sticking out right there. And to me, there's something about, they just look so festive, and each one's kind of got his own ethos going on. And you got this guy, looks like he's a jongleur or something. And this guy's just holding the score. Is that supposed to be a keyboard, or is he just the guy who holds the score? It's sort of hard to say. Um, anyway, I thought it'd be worth it. Um, I do have these links to a couple of interesting things, but they weren't quite interesting enough to me anyway to make it into this. One of them, it was is, but it was kind of cool to look at. I also felt like it wasn't an original work because somebody else already put it together. But there's some very early music that has readable. Most of the earliest paintings, the Christian paintings from not earliest, but the ones from the 1200s, 1300s. The music representations are not accurate. They're just it looks like music, but it's not really music. But then they start to be some that are actually recognizable. And this guy put together this website. His website is called earlymusicmuse.com. Early Music Muse, all one word, .com. And it's well worth looking at. The guy knows a lot. And you could find that article, but I'll also try to find a way to send it to you. And then Then there was the famous butt music by Hieronymus Bosch from his paintings, where these people that are suffering various, well, indignities, not strong enough word, but anyway, various difficulties in hell, have music written on their posteriors. And it turns out it's not a thing. There was about 2012 or 2013, somebody put together some music that was allegedly based upon that, but there's not enough there. But I also have a link to that if anybody's wants to check it out. I really appreciate that you come and followed along this little adventure. And just let me know or let Diana know if you have any questions or even if you just want to talk. Um, Hoping to see a lot of you at our concerts next weekend and hopefully also at our early music Christmas. So I don't know if we have time to take a few questions or if anybody wants to ask any questions, but that wraps up my presentation. So thank you for being here. I really enjoyed having you.
Thanks so much, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, of course. Happy to do it.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Interesting. Very
Lovely.
good.
Beautiful artwork.
Mhm.
Love it. Bob, have you ever offered a workshop or a one-day thing on Gregorian chant?
No, no, I don't think we've done that. We do chant more or less as part of certain projects. We do chant, like liturgical reconstructions, especially when we do things like Vesper service. Um, but we haven't really emphasized it. I can't claim to be an expert, though I've sung a fair amount of chant myself. It's an extremely complicated field. You wouldn't think so. It's just a single line, but it's there's many different ideas about how to actually put it together. So I'll confess to um, kind of we sort of roll our own to speak to a certain extent, and make of it. You know, we do a lot of listening, and certainly we know, you know, there are rules, but there's a lot of opening for interpretation, and you'd be surprised how the same notation can produce such completely different things. So yeah, but thank you for asking. The chant is really interesting, and of course, it underlies a lot of the polyphony that we do too. So it is good to know about it, and I think that would be a cool idea. Maybe we should offer one. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
That was really wonderful. Night.
Thank,
Yeah.
thank you.
I have a question, Bob.
Yeah, Judy.
I remember about 1,000 years ago in Amherst, a music professor from either UMass or Amherst College showed us a what do you call it when a manuscript has been scraped off and written over again,
Oh yeah.
and you can see what's underneath it. And as I recall, this was from like 5th century or some such thing. And I'm wondering, do you know any more about that? It surprised me at the time.
Well, we don't have any surviving music to speak of from the 5th century. We don't really have a clue of how they notated music at that time. Our system of notation arose much later than that. So I don't really know. I mean, that would have been. I really don't have a clue as to what that would
I
be.
pulled 5th century out of the air, but
Ah.
very, very early.
Mhm.
And his point was that we could see how they did. But if you haven't heard about it, why maybe that was an attempt that failed.
Well, maybe, yeah, maybe. I mean, people are always trying to put together like hypothetical things, but yeah, as far as I know, I mean, we know a lot about what the Greeks thought. For example, the Greeks thought about music because they wrote down a lot of theory, but we really don't know that much about how the music actually sounded. And it's a difficult, there's a pretty, as I understand it, there's a pretty large gap there.
Mm.
So Bob, I have a question.
Yes, Mark.
When, what is the relationship between the musical composer, the person who wrote this chant or this whatever, and the artist? You know, the chicken and the egg. Did the composer come first and then give it to an artist and he figured out how to put all this on the page, or did they collaborate together? Or how did that whole process work?
Well, it depends on which model that you're talking about. But the image that we're looking at right now, I don't know if you can still see it, but that was clearly a printed part book that the artist had access to, and he put it. He laid it in here. It says down here. It says Cipriano de.
Oops, you froze.
Oh no, we lost you, Bob.
Part books,
There he is.
cantus, altus, tenori, and bassus. And this is the canto one that's lying on top. So this is another one. But those would have been artifacts that, I mean, maybe the artist knew the composer, but it's unlikely. It's more likely that he had access to that part book and that he was using that sort of as a prop, and not whether the musician was actually playing or whether he was just some guy posing with an instrument is unclear. But I would say it would be unique to each different situation, Mark. We usually can't know, and so it's mostly speculative, I would guess.
Well, I was more asking about the manuscript itself, not this art piece with the manuscript in it. When they
Yeah.
were creating this book that we see in here, what was obviously somebody wrote the notes or codified the notes, and
Right.
somebody made it a pretty picture with the artwork, and some of this stuff you showed earlier had those incredible drawings and paintings and borders and
Right.
all of that stuff. And I'm more curious about the relationship in creating that document.
Yeah, you're probably talking about a situation more like Petrus Alamire's workshop that for 25, 30 years was putting those things out, and have I got a book for you to read? Yeah, shoot me an email, and I mean, if you wait till after next week, I could even lend you one of these two books that I have that will explain a lot about how that all worked and how payment went to, how the money part of it worked, the business part of it worked, the interacting with royalty in some cases worked, the traveling worked. How it's complicated. It's a complicated story, but it's fascinating, and I think you might be interested in one of these books that I have.
Yeah, and it seems to me, I mean, like you said before, they didn't have the ability to scan and print out multiple copies of this for everybody in the orchestra, so they just all sort of cluster around one music stand and look over each other's shoulders.
Yeah, or else they copied out if they needed more music, they would copy it out. But these would most in the Renaissance, late Renaissance, especially. I mean, the 16th century, they would have you would have started for a four-part piece with 4 choir books, so you could distribute those out. But if you had multiple people per part, like as often in a church situation, you would have to either look on, or you would have had to somebody would have had to manually copy parts with a pen and with a feather pen and yeah. But paper was expensive, and lined paper was probably not available. You had to have one of those rastrum things that did the 5 lines all, like the old chalkboard things for
Right.
music
Yeah.
staff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These are interesting questions.
Well, this is all fascinating to me. And so does that mean that next year that you and Amanda and Diana are going to issue our annual music packet with all these wonderful illuminated images on all the pages?
Yeah, but then we'll have to keep changing pieces out because of the inserts, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll have to put a
We're
rate
gonna
on
s-
you, Bob.
We'll start reading from that notation too. It'll be really an adventure.
Well, that's a good. I'm glad you brought that up, Mark and Amanda, because um, the idea of doing it from the original parts is a great idea, and I know some groups that do that, including our very own Whole Noise, the brass ensemble that we work with as often as we can. I think it's weekly that they read through instrumental music from original parts. That is to say,
Oh.
from copies, obviously from photocopies of original parts. And to me, that's incredible. I will say that if you add words to the challenges that you get because with vocal music we get all the same challenges that the instrumentalists would have, and the words are hard to read and very often are not there. Whenever there's supposed to be a text repeat, there'll be the equivalent of a ditto sign, which means you have to cram your words in somehow on your own. Sometimes it's obvious because it's the same melodic shape that you just had where the words were there. Other times not so obvious. So when we prepare scores for our rehearsals and performances, we often have to add a lot of text and rationalize it and make it make sense. So the big challenge is simply that it's basically a matter of time more than anything. It's like for us to prepare a whole set that way would take a massive amount of time, although it would be a great experience. So maybe we should have a season where we do all original notation.
Ooh.
Or not.
We'd have one concert. It would take
Yeah,
us that long
maybe.
to learn it.
3 pieces. We're sorry that
just
our
bring it
concert
on the
is.
road, though.
Yeah. The good news
Yes.
is we did this authentically. The bad news is it's a very short concert.
Well, thank you. This has been really interesting.
Thank you. I had a
Yes.
great time putting it together, and I always appreciate you all turning out for these things.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks,
All right.
Bob.
Have a good time, Diana, on your big trip.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Thank
Happy
you. Thank
birthday.
you.
Yeah.
Great time.
All
Okay,
right.
love you guys.
All right. Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
Bob.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Night.
Bye-bye.
Ciao tutti.